What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over what I think is the best loadout for zero build in Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 3. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below which items or which loadout you like using most. And I am going to talk about car mods as well in this video because cars are a very big part of the game right now. So I have a very similar setup to last season. The Gatekeeper shotgun I think is still far and away my favorite shotgun. We do have the Oscar's Frenzy auto shotgun added back to the game, which you can get by dueling Oscar at Classy Courts. I used it a little bit on the first day. I didn't really like it. And then the combat shotgun, same thing. I used it a bit. I didn't really enjoy it. I've never been the biggest fan of the combat shotgun outside of Chapter 1. And the benefit of the combat shotgun is it has really consistent damage and really good range. But the thing is, it's never really the greatest damage. It also doesn't benefit from headshots very much. And the fact that it's a really good range shotgun isn't the biggest deal to me personally because of how great the DPS is on some of the spray weapons. Like in Chapter 1, I thought that range was amazing because when you were like 30-40 meters away, like using an SMG or an AR could be kind of scuffed at times because of bloom. But with how accurate and how powerful some of the spray weapons we have are now, if I'm like 30-40 meters away from somebody, I would just much rather have a Warforged JR or a Thunderburst SMG than the combat shotgun. And that's kind of the situation where the combat shotgun thrives when compared to the other shotguns. So it's like it has its advantages, the combat, but I don't really care for its advantages, and I don't prefer it in the fights where it's been advantaged over the other shotguns, if that makes any sense. If you like the combat, that's fine, but I still think the Gatekeeper shotgun is the way to go for close range fights, especially with how prominent the fists are. If somebody's going to get on you and try to use those, you want a very high damage shotgun. Or like if you're fighting somebody that jumps out of a car, like you want a high damage shotgun to just get rid of them. So for pushing people and dominating close range fights, I think the Gatekeeper shotgun is still the best. And you actually can still get Cerberus's mythic version by dueling Cerberus at Grim Gate. For spray weapon, the second weapon, I prefer either the Thunderburst SMG or the Warforged JR, just like in the past. Especially if I'm going to be using the mythic version, I would really like to have the Thunderburst SMG. And then the Warforged JR is also great. It's the capability of these weapons to just melt people is very good, especially if you're going up against somebody in a car. If you need to beam the driver or beam the turret user out of a car using a spray weapon, I think the Warforged JR is going to be the way to go. And then the Thunderburst has been good for all of Chapter 5, especially when you put a laser sight on it. This season, we got the Enforcer AR and the TAC AR. The TAC AR remained in the loot pool and the Enforcer AR returned. But both of these weapons got buffed pretty significantly. And I don't mind using them at this point. Like, I would prefer to have a Warforged or a Thunderburst SMG. But if I have the choice of like a green Warforged with like, or a blue one with thermal, or like a gold TAC AR with red dot, I'm probably going to take that gold TAC AR. It got buffed pretty noticeably, its damage at range, I feel. And then the Enforcer AR might as well be a different weapon with a better damage and fire rate. It still doesn't have the best fire rate, but this thing melts. I think the gold one will headshot for 75. So again, if you want to beam people out of cars, the Enforcer AR will get the job done. I just don't like it as much for like spraying the car. And that's another reason why I would rather have the Warforged AR, the TAC or the Burst SMG. I feel like they just do better damage to vehicles than like the TAC AR, even though the TAC AR is a lot better this season and I've been impressed by it. For my third weapon, the specialty weapon, this in the past was pretty much a sniper or DMR exclusively in Chapter 5. I think the crossbow is solid. The blast radius on it isn't the greatest. It's not going to just be consistently getting damage on people in cars all the time, at least as of the time I'm recording this video. The mythic one seems to have a higher blast radius to me, and that makes it kind of better for that. Whenever I've used the mythic crossbow, which you can get from Nitrodome, I was just consistently getting splash damage on everybody in the car, and it was great. But the crossbow can be a decent counter to the vehicles. It does 250 damage per shot. That sounds like a lot, but like the ARs are like 20-30 damage a shot, and they shoot much faster. So I feel like even just spraying the cars with your AR, like the damage over time you get, I feel like is somewhat comparable to the crossbow because the crossbow has a much slower fire rate. This is good though. I enjoy having it. It's good against cars. It's good at flushing people out from behind cover. You know, if you get decent damage on somebody and then they go behind a wall, then you know they're kind of playing the peek there. You can just shoot it at the ground next to them and get some splash damage, and then usually people are going to be alarmed by you doing that, and it makes it easier for you to push them. This can also be great at like flushing people out from behind bunkers or in bunkers in a similar situation that I just outlined. So I think the crossbow is good. The DMR and the hand cannon are returning, and both of them are fine. The hand cannon actually got buffed to, I think, do more damage at range and have better bullet travel speed. There is now a mythic hand cannon you can get from capturing the flag on island. But I found that like with this season heavily relying on cars, I don't have as many fights where we're just like 40 or like 70-ish meters away kind of like tagging each other with DMRs or the hand cannon. It might happen, but I feel like a lot of times people are just in cars this season, so I don't have as much situations where I can use a DMR or a hand cannon, and so the crossbow really shines. If EMP grenades get unvaulted, I think I'm probably just going to carry those in this slot. It would be a very good counter to the vehicles, but for now I'm using the crossbow. For heals this season, I would say either the Flowberry Fizz or the new Nuka-Cola, or just Big Pots, whatever you have access to. But I think the new Nuka-Cola is pretty good. It'll give you 25 white health and then 75 shield over time. It kind of ticks up like a slurp juice. And the reason why this is good is because things can get hectic very quick this season. And just being able to pop the Nuka-Cola and then have it give you your shield over time while you're using mobility to like get away or reset the fight is pretty nice. You don't have to like actively be using this item the entire time while you're getting your health like how you would the Flowberry Fizz. So that's one of the reasons I really like the Nuka-Cola. But it really just comes down to what I'm able to find. If I'm only able to find one Nuka-Cola and I have that or a Fizz, I'd probably take the Fizz. If I have like a half full Fizz and I find a Nuka-Cola, I'm probably going to take the Nuka-Cola. It really just depends on whatever you have access to. I think both are fine. For mobility, if you guys watch any of my videos, you know that I really like the shockwave grenades, and it's one of my favorite items ever in the game. But I think the nitro gloves are better this season, mainly just because of the fact that it comes back over time. It recharges relatively quickly at 8 seconds per charge. And with how chaotic this season is, you're probably going to need to reset fight, to reposition, or get away from cars several times throughout the course of a game. And so the fact that you can just use this mobility and not care about it and know that it's going to come back is great. Whereas like I feel like shockwaves, you might run into a car and then have to use 2 or 3 just to survive. And then now that's your shockwaves for the game. You know, you got to keep finding them. So the fact that the gloves, you can find it, you have it for the remainder of the game. It recharges over time, and so you can just use it whenever and not really think about it, reset fights, and get away from cars as often as possible, I think makes the Nitro Gloves the best mobility item this season. And then it does have a melee aspect, which is very good. Not the biggest fan of melee weapons in Fortnite, but the gloves melee is good. Another thing about the gloves that I really like when compared to shockwaves is that you can easily reposition while in air. And so if a car is chasing you, you could go forward like a dash or two, and then kind of switch direction quickly and go to the left or the right or behind you easily without really losing much momentum. And it's harder for the car to do that. You know, they have to like turn, and there might be like things blocking their path. So I feel like just the ease of changing direction with the Nitro Gloves is another thing that will help you play against cars. And then there's also several mythics in the game. Like if you get the mythic crossbow, sure, use that instead of the regular one. The mythic gloves, they give you 1 extra charge. Mythic combat, I think I'd still rather use a gatekeeper. And then for the combat AR, if I get access to that, I'm going to use that as my spray weapon. I just wanted to mainly outline the regular weapons because that's what you're going to have access to most of the time. And then the same is true with mythic cars. If you get a mythic car, I would highly recommend using that over a regular car. But if you do have a regular car, these are the mods that I would prefer to use. I like bulletproof tires over off-road tires. Not only is it just more beneficial in the sense that people can't pop your tires, so your car is just good to go all the time, but also if someone gets in my car and I have to get out and like beam them real quick, the off-road tires making the car higher up, I feel like does make it a bit inconvenient to just gun any sort of like passengers out of your car. So that's one of the reasons why I would rather have no tire attachment than the off-road tires right now. But the bulletproof tires are very good. For the top-mounted turret, I think the machine gun is better than the grenade launcher at destroying cars. The grenade launcher can get the job done well, but like if someone's actively driving, I feel like it's harder to get damage on them with the grenades. Like if they're just parked and stationary, then you can get a lot of damage on them quickly with the grenades. But most of the time, people are going to be driving erratically. So I feel like the machine gun turret, just being able to swap and do drive-bys and get some damage on the other cars is great. And then also, as far as playing against people, I would rather have the machine gun turret as well. The grenade launcher turret obviously has its times where it's amazing, though. You know, if there's people clumped up or like a car parked, like I talked about, you can get a lot of damage very quick. People camping inside of bunkers, they are not going to be a problem if you have the grenade launcher turret on your car. So both are very good. I just prefer the machine gun. For the front tire attachment, or like the grill, I don't really care one way between the cow catcher or the spiked one. The spiked one I think will do more damage to players when you ram them, and maybe even other cars, so I might prefer it for that reason. But I don't really have a strong preference on these one way or the other. And then there is also heal crates around the map, which you can use that will refill your car to complete max health, which is really good. And it repairs your tire, your windows and everything too, which is kind of crazy. So if your car is not great, or like, you know, you get into a fight and you barely survive it or whatever, you know, your car takes a decent amount of damage, try to make note of where the repair crates are around the map as you're playing. Not sure if these are 100% it's going to be a repair crate every time, or if it changes. It seems like the mods themselves change from game to game. But just in general, if you drive by an area and see a repair crate, you know, maybe keep that in mind for later if you do need to repair your car later on. And using the cars is very good. Me personally, I don't want to do this. I don't get very much enjoyment from like just getting kills using the car. But as far as countering other cars, I think using the cars is one of your preferred, one of the best things you can do. So I do pretty consistently try to rotate to a gas station during the course of the game and get some mods on my car. That way I have a better chance at dealing with other enemy cars, because if you guys have played it all in Season 3, everybody's in a car like all the time. So if you don't have a car to counter them, it gets a bit rough. And if you're watching this video once the season has been out for a while, things will likely change. I expect the cars to get nerfed. I expect some items to come in to kind of combat them, like I talked about with the EMP grenades. So the preferred loadout likely will change over the course of the season. I'm making this very early on. But if you guys enjoyed this, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.